Val Lehman, thanks for coming in today. We're sitting here talking about a role that you basically finished nearly 20 years ago. Do you find that bizarre that, that there's still that interest in the show?
Well, basically, I suppose you can say I left Bea Smith behind. She hasn't quite left me behind, though. She still lingers on there. But it's more so, I think, in England, people tend to say, oh, look, there's Bea Smith. In Australia, they tend to say, there's Val Lehman. But then they know me for other things here.
The character you played, Bea Smith, is of course a pretty iconic Australian TV character. That must have had its pitfalls as well as its good points.
It has its pitfalls in that perhaps casting directors think that that's all I can do, which is sad. And it's interesting that I've just finished a telly movie, which is comedy, and it's the first time I've been allowed to do comedy, really broad comedy on screen. I'm hoping that might give me a bit of a turnaround for future work.
So did you actually audition for Prisoner? Was it a regular audition? How did you actually get the role?
I was working in a regular company and I said to my agent, I want out of this. I want to do something else. She said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, since you're asking, how about a long-running part in the television series? Ha, ha, ha. And a couple of weeks later she rang me and said, I've got a little audition for you. I want you to go and see some people about a new show coming up about a whole lot of women in prison. I think you'd be ideal for the Gestapo-style prison officer. And I went, oh, okay. So I read. I walked straight in, and the Kerry Spence was the casting director, and she said she'd seen all of my screen work. There wasn't a huge amount of it, but she knew my work. And she said, I think you're Bea Smith material. And I was in and out of there in 5 minutes. She said, come back this afternoon and read. So I went back in the afternoon and I read, and they thought, yes, we like that. Then my agent rang me a couple of days later and said, they want to screen test you. So I screen tested with Colette Mann. And she and I tested together, and we both got the parts that we tested for. And they told her before they told me. And then I heard later that, a lot of actresses, rather well-known actresses, had been up for the role. So I was very...
So Bea Smith is obviously a fairly recognisable TV character. What was it like having overnight success and overnight fame?
I have said this before, but when they're sort of handing out things like, if you had a wish list when you sort of start out your life, something, experiencing some form of fame would have been somewhere on my wish list. So it was very interesting to have that happen. It was interesting to see what it did to me. It was interesting to see what it did to other people, how well people handled it. We were all fairly secure lot, so I think we handled it pretty well. Not like some sports people do who go to pieces totally, but then perhaps actors have more brains. Now there's a thought. And I actually enjoyed it. You're looking for people to recognise you initially, and then of course you have to sort of think up ways not to be recognised because you're in a hurry and you want to go do things. You don't want to stop and talk about Prisoner all the time. So it changes. And like my family used to my daughters used to run ahead of me and say, oh, look, isn't that Val Lehman over there? And they very quickly stopped doing that.
Bea Smith went through some pretty rough times on the show. What are some that really stick in your mind?
One that I suggested myself was when Bea Smith had amnesia. I looked at the storyline coming up and said, she's been bashed on the head again. Something's got to give. Hey, how about amnesia? We haven't done that.
That was your idea?
That was my idea, yes. And one of the curious things that happened during that storyline was that when they were shooting it, they had a scene where Bea has lost her memory and she goes looking for her daughter. And my own daughter, Cassandra, played Bea Smith's tragic daughter, Debbie. One scene, the most repeated scene ever shot in Prisoner. Every time my character had some kind of trauma or drama, they flash back to that one scene. And they decided to use Cassie again, because she's going to a business college looking for her daughter, you see. And we're all out on location about to shoot it. Now, people often ask me, or journalists ask me, do you become the character? And I say, no, I don't. I'm not paid to be, I'm paid to make you believe. But perhaps when the camera rolls, I do. Because there was a tragic mistake made in this, a ridiculous mistake, not tragic, that I had not picked up. The director hadn't picked up, the producer hadn't picked up, and the writer hadn't picked up. And I picked it up, and then this camera started to roll. I shouldn't be looking for an 18-year-old, I should be looking for an 8-year-old. I have lost 10 years of my memory. And we were out on location about to film the scene, and they went, "Oh no! Oh, she's right." And then they wanted to cut it. And I had to lobby like mad and get the writer involved, Denise Morgan, the best writer we ever had on Prisoner, to please, please, please make sure they put it back in, because it was the only physical reference you had that she'd lost 10 years of her memory, because she goes, we eventually shot it when I went to a primary school and was looking for a little 8-year-old.
So tell us about your decision to leave the series when it was, you know, at the height of its popularity.
I am a great believer, if you don't like, if something's not fun anymore, don't do it. And it was not being fun anymore for me. I felt Bea Smith was a sucked orange. Really, the surprises had all gone. I was facing the same conflicts over and over again with the character. I was not learning anything as an actress. I wasn't growing in any way, so I thought it's time to leave. And again, I said to my agent, I think I want out. And she said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, okay, how about a stage production? About 10 days later, I had an offer of a stage production, a really good one. And they wanted me to start in 7 weeks. And I thought, oh, heavens, I'm sure I have to give 8 weeks' notice. And I looked at my contract, and there was a typographical error, only 7 weeks. So I gave them a 7 weeks' notice the next day and left.
What was the relationship with the crew like?
The crew were marvellous to me that day. So they taught me, incidentally, the crew on Prisoner taught me everything I know about working in front of cameras. They were fabulous, because I was pretty inexperienced when I started, and they were marvellous to me. And I appreciated it enormously. And on the last day, they rearranged the schedule, especially so that I actually shot my last scene of the last day of the last week that I worked. Yeah. And they're the ones that all day have said, adding up all the different directors that I'd worked for. And so guess who I threw a party for on the last night? It was the crew. And on one occasion, we were all invited to the Logies. Because we were a cast full of women, we very often got invited places without escorts, which used to make me very angry. And I said, don't invite us alone, that's not fair. And so this particular year, we were all invited to the Logies, because previously we'd been invited without escorts at all. And we said, well, we won't go. And that year, I think we won so many, they couldn't not have us there, so we got our way. And I didn't, because I had already been invited with a partner earlier on. I took my regular partner at the time, but the other girls took crew as their partners. Really nice. No, we were very fond of our crew. It was very close, yeah.